Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we are excited to have with us one of our veteran members, Mrs. Sarah Nwachukwu, and she will be teaching a very fundamental, critical, important topic, human resource policies that a standard organization must have. Human resource policies that a standard organization must have. Just for the benefit of some of us who may not know Mrs. Sarah Nwachukwu before now, I would just like to read a very brief profile. They say a goldfish has no hiding place. Sarah is a highly experienced human resource professional with experience cutting across various industries and sectors. She has worked with the public service or civil service or public sector, as we call it. She has also worked in manufacturing, education, transportation, and renewable energy sector. Currently, she is the head of human resources, training, and facilities at Lumos Nigeria, which is an arm of Textlight Power Solutions Limited. By way of education, Coach Sarah Nwachukwu holds a BSc, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Ilorin, where I had my first degree too. She also has a Master's in Business Administration with specialization in banking and finance from Abia State University. In addition to this, Sarah has a Master's of Science in Industrial Relations and Personnel Management from the University of Lagos. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, and she is a coach. Ladies and gentlemen, this has taken a long time to come. Finally, we have the privilege facilitating on this prestigious platform, Coach Sarah Nwachukwu, on the topic, human resource policies that a standard organization must have. You have the floor, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Oluyemi. I'm excited to facilitate on this topic. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to this topic. Before I start, I would like, by show of hands, to know how many people are handling policy development for their organizations. Are there people here handling policy development for the organization? Okay, as that goes on the chat box, okay, thank you, Valerie A. On the chat box, could you be writing the policies you have been developing for your respective organizations? That could be written in the chat box. We will gather them when the time comes. Another thing I want to ask, is there anyone on this call that has worked in an organization that does not have formal human resources policy or employee handbook? Let me see that person's hand. Is there anyone on the call? Mary Patrick. Okay. Oluyemi, can you unmute her? I just want to hear her brief experience before I continue.
Mary, I answered that. I'm not sure if, Mary, please raise your hand if you still want to talk.
Mary, do you want to talk?
I think Michael wants to say something. Michael,
okay.
You can unmute.
Okay.
All right, good evening.
Okay, let's hear you.
Yeah, good evening. Yes, I joined the place now. They don't have any employee handbook, no policy in place. I'm just coming up with one. I've been able to do one for the device scheme, for a policy for device scheme, but the employee handbook, I'm still working on all this. It's a new startup, so I have a lot to learn from this program. That is why I can't miss it.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. But how long has that company been in existence? Is it up to 2 years?
Not up to 2 years. It's just a startup. Just let's say 1 year, some months.
I just wanted to find out the experience of people that work in organizations that don't have formal policies, because I've been there and I know how it feels like. So let's continue. Today is going to be a very participatory discussion, because I know many of us here handle policy development for our respective organizations. So I'm going to share my own perspective on the topic. When the time comes, there will be room for discussions. So the discussion will go like this: need for human resources policy by a standard organization, human resources policies, best practices, human resource policy definition, key areas of human resources policy, key considerations when developing human resources policies, 43 human resources policies that a standard organization must have, human resources policy to avoid. Then we come to what other policies have you created? That is where we will have some discussions, conclusions. So let's move on. Okay, the need for this thing is moving. The need for effective human resources policies by a standard organization can never be overstated. A research conducted by a company called Comply in 2018, 84% of businesses indicated that they had formal policies. 56% indicated that they didn't have weapon policies, while 47 indicated that they didn't have social media policies. Every society needs law to establish order. Likewise, all organizations must have strong and effective human resources policies so that they can operate, so that they can make decisions about employees. They can have guidelines to make decisions about employees. Furthermore, the need for effective human resources policies by a standard organization is because we are operating in a dynamic business environment. And no matter the industry, no matter the size of organization, employee issues may arise that will make you disperse time, energy from your main focus, from your strategic direction in order to solve that problem. But if you have a strong human resources policies, it will enable you to treat this load effectively instead of you to start fighting fires. Also, human resources policies help us to mitigate legal risk. It helps us to mitigate legal risk. Again, a strong set of human resources policies enable managers to make decisions not based on their whims, caprices, or personal biases. It enables managers to make decisions based on business reasons and not on their personal biases. So the importance of having a human resources policy is critical, and every organization should make the development of human resources policies a priority. Organizations are not supposed to develop just few policies because the business landscape is dynamic, as I said before. So you have to check the shifts, the trend in your environment, and create policies to cover everything happening in your business landscape. So let's move on. Policy development, best practice. Yes, my experience has taught me that no matter the industry, no matter the country, these are the key things that you have to consider when you want to develop human resources policies. One, legal compliance. Legal compliance is key. I've not heard of any country that does not have labor laws. So any policy we want to establish must at least comply to the minimum of the labor laws of that country. If not, you may be subjected to maybe fines or litigation, or even the authorities may even come after your organization if your policies do not comply to the law, and we want to avoid that. Again, it has to reflect the International Labour Organization conventions that the country you are operating in have adopted. Nigeria has adopted several conventions. To mention a few, I think the first labor convention, the equal employment opportunity, has been adopted by Nigeria amongst many. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay, among several. So you should ensure that the policy you are developing complies to the convention. Again, it has to be comply to the collective agreement of the union if your company has a union. If not, every other day you'll be hearing solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. And nobody wants to fight fires. We don't want to be addressing fires when we have a strategic direction that we want to go to. So the policy, first of all, has to comply with the legal ILO and union. Again, you have to ensure that the policy you are trying to create complies with or supports the organization's mission. What is the strategic direction the organization is going? What is the value? What is the culture? Value drives culture and culture drives performance. So ensure that your policy supports the strategic direction of the company. So in that case, you have to get buy-in from the leadership to find out the direction the organization is going before you create any policy. So let's move on. If I'm too fast, let me know, because I speak very fast.
Okay, ma'am. We are following you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. The policy has to be reviewed from time to time because human resources policies are a living and breathing document. So we have to review the policies to reflect the evolving employee need, the changing landscape, and the evolving business trend. The market is moving, so you have to move with your market. Then the generations that were before, many other generations are joining the workforce with different needs, with different demands. So you have to ensure that your policy moves with the market and the workforce, and the market and the workforce. Sorry, my slide is moving itself. I don't know why. So consistency is another key aspect of human resources policies. The policy you create has to be consistently applied throughout the organization, irrespective of level in the organization. Having a consistent policy will help us maintain an equitable environment for employees, and who wouldn't want to work in an equitable environment? So let's move on. Yes, HR policies should be written in clear and simple language. It should be written in clear and simple language. This will help to prevent ambiguity and misunderstanding and misinterpretation. HR policies also have to be clearly communicated to staff. We all know that in any company, there are different levels of staff. Some are unskilled, some are skilled. So we have to communicate these policies, explain it to them so that they understand their responsibility and their rights under the policy. This will enable them to comply with the policy. Again, HR policies has to be employee-oriented. Remember, you're creating these policies for employees. It has to be employee-oriented. Sorry. Let me give an example. Now, let's assume your office is in Lekki and the majority of your staff are living in Agege, Pensilema, maybe Ikorodu. You now create a policy that resumption time is 7 o'clock. I don't think that the employees will be able to cope with that policy. So you have to find out the concerns of employees. What is paining them? What are their needs before you create any policy? Employee-oriented policy will help us to have employee engagement, which will lead to increased job satisfaction and incidental productivity. And we remember, all organizations are established for a mission that is productivity and profitability. So we should ensure that the policy we create, one, complies with the legal environment, two, is written in simple language, is employee-oriented, supports the mission of the organization, and also is consistently applied. Let's move on. It's worthy of note that HR policy varies from one organization to the other, depending on the context, the company, the size of the organization, and the legal requirement or the legal context. Due to this, before you establish any policy, it is better for you to have stayed in that organization for a minimum of like 3 to 6 months to enable you study the organization, study the industry, study the legal context. Therefore, it is not good, it's not always advisable for you to copy or cut and paste another company's policy into your organizational policy. I'm not advocating reinventing the wheel. What I'm saying is that before you develop any policy, study your environment, study the needs of the employees, be acquainted with the legal landscape, the dynamism of your industry, so that you'll be able to craft a very acceptable policy for your organization. Sorry, this slide is moving by itself, but let's move on. Can I move on?
You are free, ma. Just flow, ma. Just flow.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. Now, human resources policy definition. A policy is a guide to action. Human resources policy serve as guidelines that gives managers a framework when they want to deal with people issues. Let's take this definition from Michael Armstrong. Do we know him, Michael Armstrong?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can somebody read Michael Armstrong's definition for me? Both are from Michael Armstrong, so let's take that. If somebody can quickly read, I would appreciate that.
HR policies are continuing.
Sorry.
HR policies are continuing guidelines on the approach the organization intends to adopt in managing its people. They define the philosophies and values of the organization, how people should be treated, and from these are derived principles upon which managers are expected to act when dealing with HR matters. They help describe the way we do things. Secondly, human resource policies serve as a reference point where human resource management practices are being developed or when decisions are being made about people. Michael Armstrong.
Thank you very much. Well, we have seen that policies, human resources policies, is just a guide to action. When a manager wants to treat an employee, this policy will serve as a reference point in the treatment of employees. Policies are guides to actions in the treatment of employees. Assuming an employee is coming late, or you presume the person is coming late. Now, maybe in your policy, you said opening time is 8:30, closing time is 5:30. But in the policy, there's a great period of maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and you did not study the policy well. Somebody just came maybe 5 minutes late. You now punish the person. You find out that you are not doing what you have written in the policy. So we have to ensure that we study the policy very well for us to be able to apply it very well. So it is a guide to action when we want to deal with employee matters. So let's move on. HR policy have two areas: the overarching or the general policy, which says the intention of the leadership or the belief of the leadership of how they want to treat people in the organization. It could be equity, which means they want to treat people fairly and justly. It could be learning organization, which means they want to promote learning in that company. Also, you have the specific policy areas, which indicates the intent of the management regarding every aspect of human resources management, covering the whole employment life cycle, from recruitment to exit. So you will have recruitment policy, termination policy, performance management policy. These are policy areas. So let's move on. HR policy should address the following. One topic, it could be recruitment and selection policy. You cannot have recruitment, performance management, and training policy together, no. So it is always good for a policy to address one topic, performance management policy. Also, the policy should address a brief description of what you mean. What is your meaning of performance management? So you describe it. Then the scope to whom that policy applies, and usually to all employees, irrespective of level. Again, HR policies should describe the policy owner, who administers the policy, and in most organizations is the human resources department. The policy version is also important. Also, the date of creation is important. The date of revision is also important. We said earlier that HR policy is a living document, so we have to have a date to review it. The date of review depends on your landscape, organizational landscape, and your business environment in which you're operating. Some companies may decide to be reviewing every year or every 2 years, depending on the dynamism of the environment you are operating. Also, HR policy is supposed to have a supplemental procedure that indicates the step-by-step way for which that policy will be administered, and also a statement that shows sanction if you violate that policy. These are crucial in any human resources policy development. So let's move on. Key considerations in human resources policy development. Before you develop any policy, try and subject it to this litmus test. You have to pass it through the fire, subject it to this test using this criteria. 1, will the policy empower and support staff? Again, will the policy help in creating a high performance culture? Will the policy support the values, the principle of the business? I've earlier on talked about how value drives culture and drives performance. So you have to find out whether the policies will support the values that you are trying to create. Also, you have to find out whether the policy will support will help the business in minimizing risk. And we have several types of risks that a business can have. We have reputational risk, strategic risk, operational risk, and compliance risk. So you have to ensure that this policy will satisfy all these risks so that the organization does not have any trouble. And most importantly, will the policy satisfy the legal requirements of the country you are operating? If you answer yes to all this, then that policy is worth creating. So now we'll move on to discuss some HR policy areas. I have like 43, there are several. So let's continue. Sorry, let me take water. Let's continue. Okay, recruitment policy. Recruitment policy ensures that we employ the best and the brightest for our organization. In your recruitment policy, you should ensure transparency, fairness, objectivity, so that you select right people first time, all the time. So you don't have to be subjective. You don't have to be employing people from maybe only your tribe. You have to have an objective. You have to ensure that the policy you create helps your managers to employ people objectively so that we employ first time right, every time right. So these are some of the things the policy could contain. I will not be dwelling on each because we have a lot to cover. So ensure that the policy you create will satisfy those things. Again, another policy that is very important is the onboarding process policy. Research has shown that most people that left within 1 year is because the onboarding process was not properly handled. It is very crucial that we help people to socialize, acclimatize, and indoctrinate in the organization. So onboarding is that process of indoctrinating an employee, a new employee, in the way we do things here. You are trying to acclimatize that employee in your company environment. So you have seen that this policy is very important. We're supposed to have an onboarding policy that helps us to acclimatize people in our environment so that that employee can be retained. It's not after you have employed an employee, within 6 months, the person has gone because the person was not acclimatized into your organization. The onboarding policy can cover things, as I stated there, pre-arrival, first day, essential, and so on and so forth. So this policy is very crucial to enable us acclimatize the people into our work environments. So let's move on. Performance management policy. This is another critical policy for any standard organization to have. Performance management helps us to link individual performance to organizational performance. You should have a performance management strategy. Your strategy could be that you want to be assessing or appraising people every year or every quarter or semi-annually, depending on the context you are operating. Sorry. You also have to have a tool for assessing performance. Some organizations use the 360 degree. Some organizations use the management by objective and the balance scorecard. So you check your business and find out the best that will suit your organization and you employ that accordingly. It is also good to have a performance improvement plan to help employees that are not performing very well to come up to scratch. The performance improvement plan is also helpful in case employee is relieved of his or her job because of lack of poor performance, the company would have been seen to have followed a fair process before letting that employee go. So performance improvement plan is also a key aspect of the performance management policy. Also, you have to link your performance management to training need assessment. So from the performance management, you can get your training needs. Talking of training, let's move on to learning and development. Learning and development policy is another critical policy for a standard organization. The business landscape, as I said, is dynamic. Some technologies are becoming outdated or obsolete, and your company is bringing in new technology. So the skills of employees may have become obsolete. So you need to train employees to enable them function effectively in their job. Like currently in my organization, we changed the technology we were using. And now most employees for the past 6 months, we are training them on this new technology. So this will enable them function effectively on their job. So we can see that training policy is very crucial. So you should establish a policy to ensure that your employees are trained when you have a change in technology or a new process. So according to Richard Branson, train people well so that they can live, but treat them even better so that they don't want to. There are instances where some managers don't like training people, or some organizations don't like training people, thinking that they will leave. No, if you train them well, treat them well, and you will reap the fruits of your labor. So it's always good to have a training policy that enables us to train our employees to be able to function effectively on their job. So let's move on. Promotion and career advancement policy. This policy is crucial because research has shown that most people that left the organization, 35% cited lack of career opportunities in their current organization. Also, the Great Resignation has taught us to invest in our employees. As I said earlier, investment in our employees, if we invest in our employees, it will help employees to perform better. So human resources people like me and you should make human resources people like me and you should create a mechanism of ensuring that the employees' competencies are being developed. This can lead them to take higher jobs in the organization, and this will lead to increase in morale, increase in job satisfaction, increase in motivation, which incidentally will lead to organizational performance and increase in productivity. So the policy, our promotion policy, will cover criteria for promotion, career alignment, and fair opportunity. So we have seen that this policy is very critical for us to enhance the employee skills and competencies so that they can take higher level jobs. So let's move on. Employee recognition program policy. I just want to ask a question. By a show of hands, is there anybody here that would not like to be recognized after you have put in your effort or you have gone above and beyond on a project? Is there anyone here that would not like to be recognized after you have gone above and beyond? Let me see your hands up. Okay, I didn't see any hands up. This shows that the employee recognition program is very vital. Employees are happy, they feel glad when they are being recognized by their employers. And recognition may not be very expensive. Simple thank you or inexpensive gifts can also serve the purpose. But we have seen that everybody likes to be recognized after the person has put in their best on a project. So we have, this policy is also very crucial. It leads to excellence. It also leads to job satisfaction and employee engagement. So we should strive to ensure that we have an employee program policy for our organization. The policy could include things like criteria for eligibility and selection, depending on your organization. The guideline of frequency and timing of recognition is also key. Like in my organization, the customer service department does their recognition every month. So they choose the people that have gone above and beyond and recognize them with a little token. We have not started applying it in the whole organization because when we wanted to start, there was politics. So but the customer service department are doing recognition every month, and this is boosting the morale of that department. So it's a very good policy to imbibe by any standard organization. So let's move on. Compensation and benefit policy is also critical. The compensation policy outlines the elements of compensation and reward, and the policy should cover your compensation philosophy. Compensation philosophy indicates whether you want, or how you want to pay, whether you want to lead in the market, whether you want to pay averagely, or whether you want to lag. This depends on the size of your organization. It also helps you to answer questions of why you are paying differently from other organizations. Another thing that you should consider in your compensation policy includes things like the basic pay. Compensation policy also have to ensure that the requirements of the law, which is the reduction required by law, is stated there, like tax and pension. Tax and pension is critical, but also non-cash benefit like HMO is critical to be in the policy. We are not going to be taking each item one after the other because we have limited time. So let's continue. Code of conduct is also another important policy. It describes the do's and don'ts of the organization. It describes the level of professionalism you expect from your employees. Most professionals believe that it's common sense, but it's always good for you to have it written down to be on the safe side. So it could cover things like what I've enumerated here. Sexual harassment, is key. Fraud, anti-fraud, whistleblowing, all this could be encompassed in your code of conduct policy. It's always good to have that policy so that you are on a safe side. Even though people believe that they know how to behave, that policy is a crucial policy in any organization. So let's move on. Employee assistance program policy is also very important. What is happening now in the world at large, and especially in Nigeria, people are passing one stress or the other. People are passing one stress or the other. So we need this policy to enable people that are passing under stress to be able to have maybe counseling sessions counseling session to enable them maybe relieve that stress. This enables them to see somebody to talk to. The organization may invite counselors or psychotherapists to handle employees that are passing through stress of one form or the other. For example, grief. Maybe you lost somebody and you need somebody to talk to. So if you have a dedicated person that you can talk to, it will help you relieve that stress. It will help you manage that critical period. So this policy is very important for any standard organization. It helps employee morale. It boosts morale if you know that your employer cares for you. So let's move on. The health and safety policy is also crucial. Everybody has the right to work in a healthy environment. It's therefore a duty of care of every employer to have a health and safety policy. And remember, health and safety is guided by law. It's a basic requirement of the Factory Act. So when developing this policy, you have to ensure that at the minimum, you comply to whatever the Factory Act states. I remember it says that every company must have adequate clean water, must have clean environment, and also clean like toilets. The comprehensiveness of your health and safety policy depends on the industry you are operating. If you are working in manufacturing or construction, your health and safety policy will be more detailed than maybe that of a consulting firm. This is due to the type of hazards that people in construction or manufacturing are operating. So you have to check your health and the organization you are operating and now know the extent of your health and safety policy. But at the minimum, it has to cover the requirements of the Factory Act. So things like protective personal equipment is key. You have to ensure that if you have people that are working under dangerous machine, you have to ensure that each point in time, they are properly heated. So your policy should cover this. It should also cover how to report hazard and every other thing. Then also sanction for those that violate it. So let me assume you have a personal protective policy and you find out that employees are always not wearing maybe their helmets. If you give the person first warning, you have to take the person through the disciplinary procedure because the person is endangering his life and you may be liable. So ensure that you have sanction for violation of this policy. So let's move on. Discrimination policy is another important policy for any standard organization. This ensures that our workforce remains safe. So this policy should state that the organization's commitment to non-discrimination and also ensure that our organization are committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We all know that diversity, inclusion is now a very critical topic or very critical issue in the workplace. So a non-discrimination policy is crucial for any standard organization to have. So let's continue. Anti-harassment policy. Anti-harassment is a hot button topic. Nobody wants to be molested. Nobody wants to be intimidated. Nobody wants to work in an offensive environment. So it's therefore crucial for us as human resources professionals to ensure that our environment is safe to work by developing an anti-harassment policy. The anti-harassment policy may include types of harassment, including physical, and also ways to report to HR. There's also need to include a sanction for violating that policies. Then let's go to the main harassment that is causing trouble. Let's see the sexual harassment policy. Sexual harassment is a hot button topic. A research by USAID showed that women globally that 85% of women globally have been harassed in the workplace. The USAID also conducted a research in Nigeria, and it indicated that over 60% of women in Nigeria have been molested. However, we know that sexual harassment can cause reputational risk for organizations and can also cause us not to be able to attract and retain staff. So as human resources professionals, we have to create a policy that indicates a non-tolerance, zero tolerance to sexual harassment. And there are many things that could be considered sexual harassment. I remember in an organization, a man just told a woman that, you look good, you look nice in this outfit. The woman took it up. She took it up and reported that she has been harassed by that man. Just what the man said has been interpreted as sexual harassment. So we have to know the way we talk to the opposite sex. And harassment does not mean only about women. A man can be also sexually harassed by a woman. A woman can be sexually harassed by a man. And even in this day of lesbianism and homosexualism, both sexes can harass each other. So whereas wherever there is no consent, it can be interpreted as harassment. So let's be guided accordingly. It's always good for us as human resources to create policies that prevents harassment in our environment. This will enable us to operate in a safe and healthy environment, talking about health and safety. So let's continue. Leave and time off policy. Leave in Nigeria is a requirement of the labor law. So every organization must have a leave policy. However, you don't want your organization's operations to be disrupted or disrupted because people are going on leave. So you have to create a guideline on how people can take their leave. You have to create a guideline, a suitable guideline on how people can take their leave so that the organization keeps operating. In most organizations, they don't allow people to go on leave in December. Like in my organization, we frown at people taking their leave in December because almost everybody is shifting their leave to December. But check the operation of your organization. Check how you want your leave to be structured. There are different types of leave as enumerated here. So you have to, the policy has to guide employees on when and how to apply for the different type of leave. If it's your vacation, how do you apply for? If it's a bereavement leave, how do you apply? So this policy has to state how people can apply, how people can take their leave, when they can take their leave, so that the operation of the organization does not come to a standstill. So let's move on. I have the next as meal and break period policy. Meal and break period in Nigeria or break period in Nigeria is also guided by the Nigerian labor law. But we are not supposed to, we're supposed to create a policy to tell people when and how they can take their break. So also that the organization operation does not get disrupted. I want to ask, how will you feel if you enter like a bank and see that nobody is there to serve you? I don't think you will feel good. So in creating your meal and break period policy, you have to ensure that people take their break in such a way that there will be other people to work. Like in my current organization, we have structured it in such a way that people can go for the first 40 minutes, then 10 minutes after all. Then we ensure that the work must continue while some other people are on break. So you schedule when you can take your break. When you come back, other sets of people will go on their break. This ensures that there is smooth operation of the organization. And as HR people, you know, we are trying to help our organization to succeed. So we have to make policies to ensure smooth operation of our organization. So in your break period, even though the law has specified a minimum of 1 hour, you can structure it in such a way that the organization's operation does not get sidelined because people are taking their break. Also, research has shown that when people take their break, it helps to increase motivation, focus, and energy. Companies like Google have gone a step ahead to ensure that they invite meditation specialists. Like Google specifically invites Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn is the first person to bring meditation into mainstream medicine. So in Google, he comes to Google on invitation from time to time and take the employees on meditation sessions. This helps employees, you know, to relieve stress. It helps employees to gain energy and to remain more focused and motivated on their job. So this policy is very crucial for 2 reasons. 1, it is a requirement of the labor law, and 2, it helps in increasing the energy and focus of the employees to be able to perform better on their job. So this policy is crucial. You should cover things like this in your leave policy. How long is the duration of your break period, and when can people take it? What is the number of breaks you want people to take? As I said, in my own organization, we are divided into 3 so that our operations are not disrupted. You take first 10 minutes, or you take first 40 minutes, then 10 minutes. So study organizations, study the operation, and know how you will structure your own leave or your own break and meal period. So let's move on. No weapon in the workplace is also another crucial policy. Everyone wants to work in a safe environment. Weapon in the workplace can cause potential threats to life and property. So we have to create a policy that specifies a non-tolerance of the carriage or transportation of any type of weapons. However, there should be exceptions, like if you have MOPOL or military personnel guarding your organization, they will be exempted from carrying weapons or from the weapon or no weapon policy. Like in my company, when we employed MOPOL, they were allowed to carry weapons because they are rightfully entitled to carry weapons, but no other staff should be allowed to carry weapons so that they don't endanger the life of other employees. So this policy is very critical for any standard organization. So let's move on. Remote work and telecommunication policies. We all know about COVID. COVID has made most companies to start working from home, but it's not all operations, it's not all companies or not all jobs that are suitable for remote work. So you have to create a policy that outlines how your remote work can operate efficiently. So you have to address some questions when you are creating a remote work policy. And one, you have to find out who is eligible for remote work, because not all employees are eligible for remote work. Using my organization as an example, we have several departments. We have the lab or technical departments, we have the warehouse, we have the customer service, and we have the administrative department. The technical department in my organization are not suitable for remote work because they work physically in the office. They are the one that repairs our solar system. Also, the warehouse department, they package the solar system. So you find out that they cannot work remotely, but you make provision for them, a separate provision for them. But for our customer service and administration, we can work remotely. So we also made provision for people that can work remotely. So you have to check your organization. Can remote work be possible? If it can be possible, how is the best way to ensure that it runs smoothly? Another thing to consider in a remote work policy is the number of days people will work remotely and the number of time they can come to the office. So some companies do 2 days at home, 3 days in the office. Some companies do vice versa. Some companies do only 1 day. But if you are working, if you want to establish this policy, you have to ensure that it will enable your company to work smoothly, to operate smoothly while you are doing the remote work policy. It should not stop operations. So let's continue. Okay, the next policy is the social media policy. A research by Pew Center, 51% of employees indicated that their companies enforce social media rules. Also, 32% of workers say that the employers have guidelines on how to behave with the internet in general, while 63% of workers indicated that their company does not have social media policy. But nowadays, social media has become very crucial aspect of either an individual or an organization. Note that the way your organization is represented on the social media can mean either failure or success. So you should create a social media policy that enables your organization to succeed. How will you feel if the social media activity of a co-worker embarrasses you because of what the co-worker has posted? So it's always good to make guidelines on what employees can say on social media and what they cannot say. This policy is also not limited only to social media. Also, media policy in general. You have to guide your employee how they speak to the media, whether social or general media. Like in my organization, we recently wrote something about the International Women's Day. Before we could post it on social media, on our social media handle, it has to pass through the CEO to ensure that it complies with the values of our organization before it could be posted in the social media. So social media activities of your employees can mar the reputation of your organization. So we have to ensure that we have a policy that guides people on what they can say and what they cannot say in social media. The question to address on the social media policy include the following. What guidelines need to be established? What control do you want to use? What specific confidential information you don't want to see on social media? And also, you have to specify the sanction for anybody that violates the social media policy that you have established. So let's move on. Confidentiality policy. This is another crucial policy. I remember when I was working in Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, then it was called National Provident Fund. The confidential registry used to be at the topmost floor of the building and at the last office in that topmost floor. And the employees in the confidential registry, it's very difficult to even speak to them. And that confidential registry has been marked out of bound. However, that cannot work now due to the changing ways of how information are being shared. People, what has been considered confidential before is no longer confidential because people can get their information from any source. Like in my organization, we say salary is confidential. So people in HR have been bound by that confidentiality. Listen, we signed that salary will not be exposed. However, surprisingly, it's not everybody in account that's supposed to see the salary, but our group life, people that are handling our group life now mistakenly sent the whole salary to the accounts clerk that normally pays them. What we do is that when we finish, we do the invoice without anybody's name and send to the accounts clerk to pay. But we forward the staff names. But when they were returning, when they were accepting the invoice or the payment, they now sent it to the accounts clerk that normally pay them. This has exposed the policy. This has exposed our payroll, at least to an extent. So many other people in accounts will hear from her. So you cannot come now and hold the people in HR alone as guilty if any information on staff salary is had. So the questions you should address in your confidentiality policy includes: what do you need to retain as confidential? What are employees' obligations in the confidentiality policies? Also, what are the consequences if this policy is violated? But remember that it can never be strictly again because people can get information from many other angles. So you cannot hold people as strictly as before, where it was like airtight. The confidential registry then was like airtight, but now information flies loosely. So let's move on. Drug and substance abuse policy. Drug in the workplace pose hazard and also disrupts operations and productivity. If an employee comes to work drunk, you find out that that employee will not be effective that day. or under the influence of any drug, that employee will not be effective that day. So we have to create a policy that will ensure that people don't come to work under the influence of drug or alcohol. So the policy should state the type of substances that are prohibited. Not all drugs are prohibited, because if you are under medication, there are some hard drugs that you may take. So those drugs will not be prohibited because it was recommended to you by a medical practitioner. Also, the policy has to state how to test employees, either reasonable suspicious testing or incidental testing or random testing. Like in the transportation industry where I worked before, when drivers are carrying passengers to several destinations, they could be stopped by road safety at each point, and they are tested randomly. And if their alcohol level is above 0.01, the vehicle will be impounded and the passengers will be stranded, causing a reputational risk to our organization. So it's always good for we as human resources people to create a policy that will guide against drug and alcohol abuse. I remember somebody sharing in this great forum when he says a driver went and caused an accident, and it was because that driver was drunk. But the union, they went and manipulated and said the driver drank Abu. But well, I think they had a policy on no tolerance of drug in the workplace. So this policy is very crucial to ensure that our workplace runs smoothly without hindrances. There should also be sanctions for people that breach the policy. It's a key element of that policy. So let's move on. Anti-violence policy is also another crucial policy. Anti-violence, nobody wants to work in a violent environment or to work with violent people. So we have to create policies to guide employees, to guide against violence in the workplace, so that we will all work in a safe and comfortable environment. A workplace violence policy should aim to ensure zero tolerance to any form of violence. It's also ensure that quick reporting if you see anyone behaving violently against you or any other person. It also has to state the sanction for people that are behaving violently in the organization. So that this policy helps us to maintain safety and comfortable work environment. And it's also a very important policy for any standard organization to have. So let's move on. Equal employment opportunity policy. Equal employment opportunity confirms the commitment of organization to employ people based on business reason, not on their personal circumstances. It's you employ people based on their ability to do the job, not on their personal circumstances. This policy is also good to have for any standard organization. Like in America, we have the ADA, that's American with Disabilities. So there is a law prohibiting companies not to employ people with disabilities. The person may be differently able. The person may be, let's say, maybe the person is paralyzed down, but the brain of that person may be sharper than most of us that think that we are full-bodied. So they are differently abled. They are differently able. So we have to make a policy to ensure diversity inclusion and equity in the organization. This policy could state non-tolerance of discrimination based on race, color, gender, disability, marital status, and all whatnot. So this policy is a crucial policy to ensure inclusion in any work environment. So let's move on. Redundancy policy is another important policy. Redundancy could happen due to restructuring, due to downsizing, or due to new technology. It is good for HR to have guidelines on how to handle the redundancy situation so that employees are treated fairly. People that are affected are treated fairly. The policy should state how you want to handle the employee. In most organizations, it is first come, last out. Some people also use maybe competency. The most competent people will remain, where the people that are not performing as well may go. But you have to have a well-structured policy on how to handle redundancy when it happens in your organization. Also remember that redundancy is guided by the Labor Act. So you have to ensure that you follow the requirements of the Labor Act while you are doing your redundancy policy. So let's move on. Anti-retaliation policy. Anti-retaliation policy. This policy guides people that maybe voice their concern when they see unethical behavior, when they see discriminative behavior or harmful behavior. It guides people that report all those things. The policy is good because when somebody behaves maybe unethically and you report that person, if the person retaliates, when you see another such issue, you will not voice out. You will not talk, and that type of issue will now become prevalent in the organization, which will not be good for the organizational culture. So it's always good to have a policy to guard against retaliation in the workplace. The policy could include things like definition and example of what is considered violence, and also it should include the consequences of people that are violating that policy. So let's move on. Freely choosing employment policy. As I said before, Nigeria has signed into several ILO conventions, and one of the conventions that Nigeria signed into is the Anti-Child Labor Convention. So employment, each organization should have a policy that shows their commitment to employing people freely. That is why it is always good to ask people to apply for the job. Ask people to apply before you give them employment so that they will not turn around and say they have been forced into employment. Also ensure that your company don't employ underage people. Like in Nigeria, I think the employment starts from 16 years. So ensure that your employment policy, you have a freely chosen employment policy to protect your organization. So let's move on. Workplace romance policy. Now I want us to discuss briefly. I have a question. By show of hand, I want people to answer that question, or one person to speak about that question. Is it bad to, hello? I want one person to raise his or her hand and speak or answer this question for me. Is it bad to date a co-worker? Somebody can just raise his or her hand and answer that question for me. Raise your hand mute yourself and answer this question for me. Is it bad to date a co-worker? That's my question. So who wants to answer? Who wants to answer? Okay, the first person is who? I'm seeing Tochi. I'm seeing Tochi.
It's not.
I'm seeing Tochi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I think I'm seeing Aaron Alasi. Can that person answer?
Okay, good evening, Ma. Well done so
evening.
far. It's really an engaging session.
Thank you.
For me, it's not bad to date a co-worker, especially if your policy allows that. I am currently married to my former co-worker because our policy allows us to date and we have a son together. So
okay. Thank you very much for that answer. Well, whether it is February 14 or any other day of the year, love is in the air and in the clock. It's doing ting, 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 ting. Love is moving all around. So we have seen that it is not bad to date a co-worker. Research has shown that most people spend, I think, 1/3 of their time in the office, leaving little time, aside from office to meet other people. Because of this, the office has become a dating app connecting people. But one thing is that we don't pay to buy the app. We don't download the app. The office is connecting people without downloading it, so it has become a dating app. However, workplace romance can cause headache for human resource people, including, as I listed here, productivity loss, abuse of power, conflict of interest, cultural disruption, and above all, allegation of sexual harassment. So you have to create a policy that guards against lack of productivity or productivity disruption while people are dating each other. Like presently in my organization, we learned that a staff has impregnated a female staff and they were in the same department. So when their manager called me to look at the issue, I looked at it. Though they're in the same department, is he reporting to the man? No. Will it disrupt our productivity? No. Was it a consented relationship? Yes. So I allowed it to go because it passed the litmus test that we had. It passed everything we had in our employee handbook pertaining workplace relationship. It's always good for us to have it written down so that we'll be able to answer questions from employees about dating each other. Most importantly, the basic question that I asked before, is it bad to date a co-worker? It is not bad, but we have to guide it. We have to guide it so that it does not turn to loss of productivity or allegations of sexual harassment. We have to ensure that the relationship is mutually agreed by the two parties because they are adults. We cannot infringe on their destiny. But if it's disrupting oppression, we also have to have a section in that policy that frowns at disruption of oppression. Like in some organization, you cannot date a co-worker because they think that maybe two of you can maybe connive and maybe, I don't know, but like in most banks, you cannot date a co-worker or both co-workers, two employees of a bank cannot marry. But I know fully well, like in the Navy or in the military, you can date an officer of the same level, but you cannot date people of lower rank. If you date somebody of lower rank, one of you must resign. So you have to create a policy that suits the environment you're operating. So please, let's move on. Thank you very much for your contribution. Data protection policy is another key policy. We know that the Nigerian data protection regulation, they have become tighter, they have given tighter privacy policies. Recently, like in my organization now, we are currently filling the NDA form. NDA is the Nigerian Data Protection Agency. So data protection has become crucial, and we have to ensure that our organization are top-notch in our policy. In most companies, in most countries, I think even in Nigeria now, if you expose employee information, you may be fined, and nobody wants to be fined. So we have to create a data protection policy that enable us protect the data the employee gives us. Like questions they used to ask in that form, how do you protect both physical or hard copy files? How do you protect soft copy files? Which organization do you send employee data to? Which country do you send employee data to? They want to find out that the country you send your employee data to is not in the blacklist. So you have to ensure that if you have operations outside Nigeria, the company, or if you send data outside Nigeria, the company you are sending or the organization you are sending your data to is in the white list. If not, your company will be fined. So the policy should cover things as stated below. It should ensure employees that they are of the privacy of their data. It should ensure employees what happens to their data when they leave. It should also ensure employees the right to of their information. So anytime they need their information, they can see it. So this is a very important policy for us to develop. So let's move on. Okay, I will be very fast now. Equity, diversity, and inclusion. The need for this policy can never be overemphasized. Now, it can never be emphasized. Companies like Salesforce have taken the lead by employing a chief equality officer, demonstrating the commitment of the organization, the top leadership to equality. So our organization can follow suit. So let's move on. Supplemental workforce policy is also another key policy because of the way work ebbs and flows. So some projects that are needed today may not be needed tomorrow. So we have to have a policy of how to hire people when we have new projects. Like in my organization, we have what we call project freedom. We employ people for 6 months to handle this project. Once this project is ended, those people will go, except 1 or 2 of them that excelled, we may retain them. But this policy is needed to guide you when you have excess workload, or when you want to ensure that maybe somebody is pregnant and is going for 3 months. So you know how to employ people to cover that period. So I'll have to be very fast now. Employment classification policy is also another crucial policy. It helps us to classify our workforce into part-time, full-time, exempt, and non-exempt. Like in America, exempt employees are not entitled to overtime. Nigeria does not have exempt and non-exempt, but I know that this HR mentorship community, some of us are even abroad. So that's why I'm taking it from all angles. So this helps us to know the eligibility of employees to overtime and some other benefits. So this is a crucial policy for us to have. So I'll move on. Disability and reasonable accommodation. As we said before, these people are differently able. they need to be accommodated in the workforce. In Nigeria, companies like First Bank have gone ahead. I think Let's-Go too have gone ahead to ensure that they employ disabled people and make accommodation for them, because I could remember the day Emmanuel Michael was sharing. He shares the extent they have gone in employing disabled people. These people are differently able, as I said before. Most of them are more intelligent than even me and you up here. So for us to have a diverse organization, an equitable and inclusive organization, we have to employ them and make reasonable adjustments to them. What is considered reasonable depends on your organization. So you check what your organization can afford and provide for disabled people. But we have to have a policy. It's a good practice and it's best practice to do so. Let's move on. Okay, I think this is about anti-bullying. Bullying is now a hot button topic. It's a hot button topic. So much so that even Johnny C. Taylor Jr., SHRM, SCP, do we know him? He's the president of the SHRM America. That's the biggest human resources society. He says that workplace bullying have no place in the society or anywhere. Bullying is such a critical issue that we have an international Stand Up for Bullying Day. So our responsibilities as HR include the following: call out bullying when we see, our responsibility, the responsibility of everybody is to call out bullying when we see it. Create a broader conversation to discuss what is and is not bullying. Make sure that those who feel victimized are heard. SHRM has given us that responsibility as HR. Who are we not to create an environment without bullying? So we have to create a policy that guides against bullying in our organization. So let's move on. Whistleblowing. When you see something, say something. So I will not dwell on this policy. So when you see something, say something. So let's move on. Caregiver policy. Caregiver policy is also another policy that has been called out by SHRM. It says that half of caregivers come late to work. Whose responsibility? That's a question for me and you. Whose responsibility? And he answers it there and says ours. Ours as HR professional. He now enjoined us that this National Caregiver Day, we should commit to educating ourselves as HR professionals, the responsibility we have to caregivers. We should be empathetic to them and make adjustments for them. We need to create policies that support them while they support those they love. How are you in your organization supporting caregivers? That's a question for you and I to answer. So I'll move on. Employee relation policy. This policy, I cannot overstate it. Employee relation policy is the way the employer and employee relates in the industry. And nowadays, it is mainly individualism, where people speak on their own. But collectivities, where people use unions or representatives to speak to the management, is also good. CIDP has said that an environment where employees can make their voice known to the management leads to increase in employee well-being and also increase in organizational performance. So we have seen that this policy is a crucial policy to have by a standard organization. So I'm moving on so that we can. Dress code. The strictness of dress code depends on the organization. If your organization is customer facing, or you're having a trade show, or you're entitled to wear a uniform, okay. that will tell you how you will enforce your dress code. But gone are the days when company could dictate the type of trouser somebody can wear, or the color of somebody's trouser, or whether the person can wear jeans to work or not. Mary Barra, the president and CEO of General Motors, one of the largest organizations in the world, reduced the company's 10-page dress code document into 2 words: dress appropriately. What is appropriate depends on the organization. So check the organization and find out what is appropriate for that organization and create your policy as such. But the days to monitor people, you are wearing jeans, you are wearing this, is no longer tenable. I will discuss more on when it comes to policy to avoid. So let's move quickly. Religious accommodation. Man is a religious animal, according to Mark Twain. So people have to be accommodated. Like in most offices, Muslims go to pray on Fridays. So we have to make reasonable accommodation for people that want to take time for one religious reason or the other. So I want to move fast. Okay, accident reporting is also another very important policy and is guided by law. So we have to ensure that we mitigate these risks by our employer by ensuring we have a well-defined policy on how employees can report accidents when they see it or when it happens to them. And as I said, it's guided by law. I think the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund stipulates that accidents should be reported, I think, 7 days. So we have to ensure that we have a policy that covers accident reporting. So let's move on. Mental health and well-being is also another hot button topic. It's a crucial policy for any standard organization to have. Many people are passing through stress. Many people are passing through one form of mental health problem or the other. So this policy is very important, and it can cover something like addressing work-life balance, addressing workplace stressors. What are the things that stress people in the organization? You try to address it. Also, it should cover things that it should cover helping employees to seek assistance, as we said before, using the Employee Assistance Program Forum. So let's move on. Progressive disciplinary policy. Discipline is key because people will maybe violate one policy or misbehave in one form or the other. But it's key, it is crucial for us to have a policy that outlines how people will be disciplined when it happens. One important thing is that the process of handling discipline is as important as the outcome. I repeat, the process of handling discipline is as important as the outcome. The disciplinary policy should be documented. Every stage, every step should be documented. In case the employee is terminated and it gets to court, we should have our documents. The process is as important as the outcome, and documentation is key. Most organizations have a disciplinary procedure that starts with oral warning, first warning, suspension, termination, depending on the gravity of the offense. So this policy is a crucial policy for any standard organization. We have to have it in place. So let me move on. Grievance policy. This is a fallout of disciplinary policy. An employee may be aggrieved. Maybe the person has been disciplined and the person is saying that, no, the punishment I've been given is more than the offense. Or the person might be aggrieved because the person has been overlooked for promotion, or the person might be aggrieved for what whatever reason, but we have to have a policy for employees to relate their grievance to the organization. So we have to have an open door policy so that employees can voice their grievance. And it's always good to use the informal process first, where the employees can resolve the grievance at their own level. But if it's not solved, then you can go to report it to your first level supervisor. If that person does not solve it, report it to the second level supervisor until it gets to the leadership, the executive management, which has the final say in any grievance policy. So this policy, in any grievance process, this policy is a key policy. So let's move on. Okay, termination and separation. Terminating an employee is very crucial because it poses severe reputation. So it has to be handled critically so that you don't fall foul of the law. And remember that termination is guided by the employment law. Termination is guided by the employment law. So ensure that your company follows the labor law when terminating employee. I think last 2-3 months, Guinness terminated an employee and the person went to court and the person won at court and Guinness was liable to a fine of, I think, 52.5 million. How many of us want our organization to be liable? I don't think anybody. So we have to ensure that we have a policy that a termination separation policy that guides our organization. Remember that employees, okay, let me talk about this one in the exit procedure, in the exit of boarding policy. So let's move on. Offboarding and exit policy. Offboarding is a process of where the employee's relationship with the organization has come to an end and we now have to part ways with that person. So the offboarding policy should be handled as carefully as the recruitment policy. We don't want employees to leave the organization with bad taste in their mouth. So we should handle the offboarding policy the way we handle the recruitment policy. The policy could cover things like exit interviews, finalizing the administrative tasks, maintaining post-relationship with exiting employees is key because employees are ambassadors. Employees are ambassadors. We should keep that in mind. So we should treat employees that are going very well. So let's move on. Policies to avoid. I have several policies that we should avoid as human resources people. One, inflexible time off. People that are working full time, when they require half day off to go for one occasion or the other, we should allow them that time. It boosts their morale. Like in my organization, any day I want to do one thing or the other, like yesterday, on Friday, they were coming to register people in my estate. I told my CEO that I will be coming late because I want to do registration in my estate. He allowed me. Sometimes I want to do 1 or 2 things before I come to the office. I'm allowed. So this is a very good policy that boosts morale and also will make me work more for the organization. Then another policy to avoid is the mistrustful bereavement leave. Did that grandmother or your mother really died? That is what you are asking an employee. If you ask people to bring proof of death, like death certificate, just because you want to give that person leave. Some companies that pay, okay, you may say, okay, I want to pay money, but I want 5 days bereavement leave or 2 days bereavement leave as my entitlement. You now start asking me to bring a proof. of death. Like in my organization recently, one of our employees lost the mother. He just took leave because the mother is a Muslim. They have to bury that person that same day. Why is the person going to get death certificate to show you before he now goes to leave on leave to borrow his mother? So we should ditch this type of policy. No decoration in the workplace is also another policy to ditch. Employees are not working in a prison. So if they want to decorate their policy by maybe putting their pictures or putting flowers or any decoration, allow them. It makes the workplace more lively, more humane, and also increases their morale, increases their productivity. So let's move on. No use of cell phone or internet in the workplace is also another bad policy. It's another bad policy. Employees should be allowed time if they want to make phone calls or if they want to use the internet. I'm using the office internet now. I had to come to the office so that I don't have any disruption because I can be at home and maybe my internet is fluctuating. I'm using the office internet. I'm using the office laptop. So we're supposed to create policies that allow people to use their phone in the office. I'm not saying that they should overuse. Everything should be guided. Then let's come back to the dress code. Stitch level dress code policy is outdated. We hire, we recruit adults and they know how to dress to come to work. However, if somebody is dressing to work as if that person wants to go to a party, you can call that person aside and talk to that person. Use your judgment. Use your judgment. Those archaic, antiquated dress code policies are no longer tenable in this era, in this age. So we should ditch that policy. Follow the footsteps of Mary Barra. Dress appropriately should be our key word. And finally, no reference policy. This is a very evil policy. I remember my friend was working in an organization and she got a job in Guinness. When she wanted reference, the MD refused to give her reference. This is somebody has put in her best effort for that organization. When she wanted to leave, they refused to give her reference. How will you feel? What will you be saying about that organization if you were the person? So it's not good for us to have a no reference policy. Give that person reference when the person needs it. Thank God for the consultant that handled that issue. The consultant now told the lady to call one of their co-workers to give her reference, and the person gave her reference, and she got the job. So we should go ahead and give references. It is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. We are in the human workplaces. The human workplace has come to stay, and most organizations are seeing the benefits of connecting with the employee and the connection between passion of employees and performance. Ditch all antiquated policies now. And remember the importance of clarity, language, and tone in the policies we create. This is key. Clarity, language, and tone is very crucial in the policy we create. HR policies, no matter how good they are, no matter their intention, if they are written in antiquated or ambiguous or authoritarian languages, they will be misinterpreted and employees will not like it. So we should ensure that the policy we create has very good language, very good tone, and also is clear. That is my last slide. Thank you very much. So let's go to policies other policies that you have created So 1 or 2 people can share the policies that they have created, because we have spent a lot of time. So 1 or 2 people can share the policies they have created. Or 1 person can raise up his hand and share policies they have created that are not among these ones. Okay, if nobody is sharing, let's move on to question and answer. Okay, Mene, can you share? Can you unmute and share?
Hi, Ma'am. You've just done a fantastic job. Well done.
Thank you.
Mine is not really about the policy that I've created, but I followed through. I was watching out for you to say something around the policy on that support in active service. I didn't see where you said anything apart from the bereavement thing that you said, but I didn't see where you spoke about it.
Death or death?
That support, yes. You know,
Death.
how organizations, yes, maybe when an employee dies, it should be covered under bereavement policy, but what I saw here is the opposite for you. So I wanted more clarity around that. Thank you. You've done a fantastic job this night.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, there are several policies and we cannot cover all of them in one session. I had almost like 100 policies. There's no way we can cover all the policies. Some organizations have the policy of either buying caskets and sending some representative to the person's village. Other organizations have even bigger policy on death of an employee, or even first level relations. Some organizations give 100,000 to the death of a first level relation. So we cannot cover everything in one session. There are several other policies that are not covered here. Does that answer your question? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, it did. But forgive me if I give my input here. I felt that this should also be a very crucial policy to have, because this should also be like one of those, what will I call it now, value propositions to prospective talents that we're trying to get in and all that. But forgive me, nobody prays for death. But if
you nailed it. You
nailed
it. So if you tell me that you pay for my casket if I die, I will not enter that organization, because I don't want to die even at this age.
Okay, ma'am. All right.
A younger person. But it's a crucial policy to have anyway. We have it in my former organization. When I was working in NSITF, we had it. Many organizations have it. It's good, but as I told you earlier, I cannot cover everything in under one session. So please, any other question?
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much
evening,
for
ma.
the section.
Good
It
evening,
was
ma.
really insightful. Thank you so much. But I have a question. Is it a question or a concern? There is this policy. I want to know if it is a labor law standard or not. Like, an employee resigned from my organization, and the MD insists that on the termination certificate that I should include that the guy cannot work in any other company that does the same business as ours for the next 24 months. So I want to confirm if it's a labor law standard or it is just the company's policy.
Well, thank you very much for that question. It is not a labor law standard. It is guided by your employment contracts. Some contracts will say that you cannot work for a competition within 24 months or 12 months after you have resigned. So what did that employee sign in his or her contract? Is that in his contract of employment? Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Yes, ma.
Okay, so you have to read the person's contract of employment. Is that term in the contract of employment? If it's not there, it's not tenable. Because if that employee sues your organization, you people are up to something else.
But what if a situation whereby the employee now got another opportunity in the same, does that mean that we need to go after the employee or something?
I asked you a question. Is that term in your employment contract, in the employee's contract? It is the term is in the employee's contract.
Yes, ma.
Okay. If the organization have time to waste to be chasing employees up and down, it's up to you. But for me, I don't see any reason. I don't support all those obnoxious things. The policy may be there to guide you, maybe to put fear. Somebody has gotten another job and is trying to move on. Why did you people not retain that person? Maybe you are paying the person toro, kobo, kobo. The person now got where they are paying him million. In this Nigerian environment, you now tell the person that because of confidentiality or because of one policy, the person should go and stay at home 2 years without food. Are you thinking of how that person will feed his family for those 2 years? No court will, though, except you meet a wicked judge. If not, any human judge will tell you, no, you can't do that in this environment of Nigeria. Tell somebody that the person cannot work. If somebody is working in, let me say I'm working in renewable energy now, the likelihood of me to get another job in renewable energy is far more than for me to get in manufacturing. So if I live here, I'm going to another renewable energy, though it's in my contract. I have people that have left my organization and went to another renewable energy. We didn't pursue them, though I was not here then, but if I'm here, I will not pursue them. So
absolutely, we must be sure that what we are doing is not slavery. Yes. We have fundamental human rights. Movement is part of it. So if you are bonding somebody or trying to say somebody cannot move to another organization within a similar sector, the time limit must be reasonable and the reasons must also be reasonable, because if it goes to National Industrial Court, they will look at the context and they will look at the reality, okay, and the appropriate clauses. Thank you so much. Let's take Samuel Adi for orderliness. Samuel, you can meet and make your contributions.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, ma. Good evening, everybody. All right, so I just wanted to come in to share a bit when Madam asked the question of other policies, and she was right on point when she said there's so many policies that could be created. In my organization, these policies that the lady was asking about, I didn't get her name, we call as company support policy. So it covers all sorts. It covers weddings, birthdays, death of the parents of a staff, death of siblings of staff, and all of that. So we try to cover as much as the company can afford to take care of. And in all this deaths and celebrations that we cover, we make sure we try to limit it to your nuclear family, because if you don't do that, people will be bringing cousins and distant relations and all of those things. And to be honest with you, as the HR director in my company, we also do verification. So you just cannot come out of the blues and tell me that your mom died. If I check it and that mom is one step auntie or one distant relation that you decided to call mother, it doesn't fit into our policy. So, because if you don't put some stringent controls in some of these things, you'll find people come today and say, it's my direct mother that gave birth to me that died. Then next time they say, it's my stepmother because my father married another person. You know, it just starts complicating issues. So it's always better to just try and limit the circle of the circle and the circumference or influence or area of coverage. You need to limit it, because if you don't, you can. One thing I can say from experience is that no matter what you do, a lot of employees can nenever be satisfied. They will always poke a hole somewhere or try to misinterpret the policy, or try to make it seem like there's a gray area that was not covered and things like that. So my personal advice is that, yes, in HR, there's so many policies that you have to create. But in creating it, just like Mr. Oluyemi said, let's not put people in bondage and all of that. You know, while we're doing that, it's not a slave trade and all of that. So let's try and be flexible. Human resource, there's a human face to what we do, okay? I was really impressed when Madam was talking about the policy around if you have something to deal with and you can't get to the office in the morning, you can take, can be allowed to do it and all of that. Because I've also worked in companies where people are victimized for doing that. And these are not things that you plan to do. They could just come up. Your daughter could be ill early in the morning or a Monday morning, you're heading to work, or you're already even at work and they call you that she's stooling or vomiting. You can't concentrate at work if you don't go back to go and address that, unless maybe you have your mom or your sister or someone that could do that for you. So you might need to go back home and sort that out with your child or something like that. So when human resources has a human face, I think it works for every single one of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's quickly take Akintoye. Akintoye, please.
Okay, all right. Good evening. Mr. Emi is here today, so
It's okay.
thank
Good
you,
evening,
Ma, for this. Thank you for this session. So I have when we're talking about the reference policy, there's this particular company that I'm consulting for. And I was at last year, I remember employing some position, senior roles for them. So while during the course of this, as at early this year, there's a particular employee that we employed. Is more like let me mention is CFO. So he resigned. That's after about 7 months of employment, and he got another job. So the company sent us their reference form so that we can fill on behalf to at least to say that this employee is quite good, or to get other information when it comes to the what's it called, remuneration that was paid, period of employment, and all that. So the employee called me personally to tell me that he want me to help him. So I felt, okay, in what way? So apparently, when he was trying to get the job from them, he wrote that instead of putting the time of, it was employed July last year, that was July 2023, and he resigned January 2024. So instead of that, in his information over that he gave to them there, he wrote that he worked with the company May 2020 till January 2024. That is a span of about 4 years. By the way, you just 7 months in the company. So I told him that I have to respond to this reference call, but I cannot put that you worked 4 years, because one thing is not ethical. It's more like you're telling me to lie. So in this situation now, to be sincere, I'm just on the block. I don't know what to do to that particular response that I'm going to give. Should I just give the right information? He was saying that it's going to cost him hands and legs, but I felt you already know what the circumstance may come with before you put in that you worked 4 years in this organization. By the way, you've worked somewhere else before you come to this organization, which you use 7 months. So why don't you use that from our company instead of this? So I don't know what to respond to this. Should I ignore? Because he was saying that maybe I should not just respond. And I felt it doesn't speak well. So should I respond to it, or should I just let it be? Or I don't know what to do at this point. So I just tend to share this. Thank you.
Tunde, I think you know what to do. Do the right thing here, Tunde. You know what to do. And the right thing is clear. Do the right thing here, Tunde. Nobody is going to tell you here to lie or to cover something up. Nobody on this call will do, on a recorded call, especially. You get what I mean? Do the right thing. Right. Before we come back to some of the people on the call, let me quickly take my Oga, Madam Chidi. Madam Chidi, you have the floor, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my brother Oluyemi, and then for the speaker. Thank you very much for facilitating this for us. What the last question she asked to comment on, that then brings to mind what is called business ethics policy in an organization. Like you have responded, there is no need to lie. And I just want to point out, if you have that policy, it will guide you. So maybe, I don't know if my sister mentioned it that she was presenting or not. It's important to note that as well. Business ethics policy that guides how we conduct business and how we respond to issues like. Because the point is, some of these things with staff, I tell my colleagues in the office that it's always a slippery slope. You see staff or employees or team members, they come with some funny requests. You think they don't know what they are doing. The moment you give in to that, others will come and they'll keep asking. So like you said, she should just say the right thing. There is no need to lie. He knows what he was doing ab initio. I've had employees come to me and assess their pension. And you know, to assess pension, you need to have left employment. They are still in employment. And they come and say, Madam, you can help us. Help you in what way? To write a letter that you are no more in employment so you can assess your pension. And I tell them no. When my other colleagues go, I tell them, you can't do this because, you see, the thing is that others will come. And then people will even blackmail you. Tomorrow when you don't do it, someone will say, but you even wrong. Or a situation where you have people who will take because they do business with your organization, they want to give you tips. This is not hamper. This is tips. Just to give, they say, oh, that's what we do for every HR. That's also very dicey. I've had to refuse that because as a matter of policy, it is wrong apart from your personal value. Why it is dicey is that my impression is that you won't be able to say anything tomorrow when that is very poor or something. So I believe that that is one policy we should also put in place so that it will guide us. And in case we have other employees who come up and they do the same thing, I just thought I should mention that. Thank you.
So much,
Thank
Madam
you very
Chidi.
much, Chidi.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chidi is the immediate past National Treasurer of CIPF. So we'll quickly go back to Jumai Olawale. Madam Sarah, I want to say something.
Okay.
I'm trying to manage time so that you can go.
You said she's the immediate past treasurer.
Yes, of CIPF.
Okay, I used to hear her name every time, treasurer, Madam Treasurer. Well done. No, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a good job you did. God bless you.
God bless you too. Okay, so let's.
Jumai, you have the floor. Jumai Olawale.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mark. Madam Sarah, thanks for this section. My own, it's more like a question because I've worked in the call center for like 8 years. When you talked about using phones in the office, now, it I would say it doesn't cover everything because in telecoms and in some call centers, you find employees while working, talking to customers, they are operating their phones. So at that point in time, they are distracted and they might not get full information about what the customer is complaining or requesting, and thereby giving out false information. So the rule in the call center is you cannot make use of your phone. If you have to, you would have to reach out to the team manager on shift to take permission before you step out and make use of your phone. Just need clarity on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Jumai. That's the rule in every call center. As I stated before, you have to ensure that your policy supports maybe organizational culture. So the culture of the call center is that you can't be taking your personal calls because you cannot be taking 2 calls at a time. If the customer is talking to you, you'll be distracted. So we have to be guided. Like in my call center, to be honest, you cannot pick personal calls, but that is limited to the call center. However, they also have maybe shift leads and people that maybe supervise them. You can maybe, sometimes they give the phone to the person to find out maybe the thing is critical, because though you are working in a call center, if they call you that your child have an accident, or, you know, you will not, because you're attending to customers, you will not attend to your child. So we have to try to seek a balance between the call center rules and your own personal rules. And Mr. Oluyemi, can you throw more light on that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, context matters. And Madam Sarah mentioned it very early in her presentation. You know, for every policy, there are guidelines and there are contexts. I'll give another example in addition to the call center. So imagine if you're a surgeon, would you be doing operation and be picking call at the same time? It can't work. In fact, if you go to some hospital theaters, the way the theaters are created and designed, calls will not even be able to come in. If it's a 2-hour surgery, it's 2 hours of no calls. After the surgery, you can go and check your phone if you have missed any messages, and then you return it. So context matters. It's not as if it's a one-size-fits-all, and it may not affect, for example, all the departments in the organization. Let me give another example. Normally, if you are a driver, you should not be driving and be picking calls at the same time. In fact, if road safety catch you, it's an infraction, because if you pick the call, that means you are not paying attention to the road. You can cause accidents, you can become a victim of accident, and it can lead to a fatality. All right. So let's quickly progress. We'll take Mr.
Oluyemi.
I'm with you, ma'am.
Please, I want to give one crucial example. If you are a pastor in the pulpit, you cannot pick your calls, or else
or even
you will be.
A lecturer or a teacher, when you are teaching, you cannot be picking calls.
So we have to check the organizational context. Okay. Juma.
Please.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Thanks so much for this opportunity, sir. And well done, ma. Please, ma, I have a question. Someone that is an intern in an organization, you know, an intern is not really part of the mainstream of employee of the organization. And can such a person be granted maternity leave?
It depends on how you want to look at it. How long has the person worked as an intern?
Seriously, the person joined the organization, served in the organization, served with us. Do you understand? And in the course of service, she had a child, and less than 2 years now, she has finished service, now an intern, and she got another child and asking for maternity leave.
So can I respond to this question?
Okay, please do.
Okay, so you see, the thing with policies is that organizational policies, like Coach Sarah mentioned, are submerged into national and international policies. Now, part of the international and national policy is what we call maternity leave. Maternity leave has no recourse to the type of employment. It doesn't matter whether you're a full-time employee, you are a corper, you are an intern, as long as you are a woman and you are with an organization and you are pregnant. It doesn't matter whether you are pregnant last year or 2 years ago. It's what we call a fundamental human right. No organization or human or person or institution has the moral, physical, or legal right to dictate to another woman when she can conceive or take it. The best you can do is moral situation to say, oh, like advocacy, maybe in the interest of your health and your child's health, maybe space it 2, 3, or 4 years as the case may be. That is advisory. You cannot institutionalize it and say you can only be pregnant after 2 or 3 years. As long as that person is reporting to your work and that person, is pregnant, they are covered by labor law to go on maternity. It doesn't matter the nomenclature. intern, ITO, full staff, contract, it doesn't matter. Please get this and get it right. It's a fundamental human right. I hope that is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, very clear. Thank you very much.
Oluyemi, I don't know if I can quickly contribute.
Okay, quickly, sir. Quickly, sir. Quickly, sir.
All right. The issue of maternity is a very sensitive thing. Oluyemi has said something about it. But further to that, when you are writing your policy, there are also rules or guidelines to maternity. You should have worked before, maybe must be maybe a staff of 1 year or whatever, because also pregnancy will be 9 months. All those things guide. There are some other rule that says to you about that, what happened after the first maternity, without having to jeopardize the fundamental human rights. All those things help a great deal. So the person also will know that we are not encouraging slavery here, but I've just gotten back to a child now. After that 3 months, some people also get pregnant while even lactating, while still winning the other one. So if there are no controls, it becomes a problem. But that's not where I'm going. Are you aware of people who also write for maternity for children that are adopted? That also occurs. And like Oluyemi said, it becomes an issue, it becomes something of emotions. The person has been trusting God for many years, finally adopted and needed to go and take care. There's no time I will have gone into that, but we should also be wary of that people who have been married for many years, don't have child, and later decide to adopt children, will not go and get a small child, maybe a little child of maybe 3 months or so, and it's now asking for paternity leave to go and that. It becomes an issue that it was pregnant or not pregnant. And the laws, when we had it, was saying that we don't have any right to prevent her. You don't have to pry into our privacy of whether I was pregnant or not. At least you saw a baby and all manners of things like that. But we don't have no time to do that. But we should know that such things do occur. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in fact, many companies today, I've seen at least 5 companies that I have seen that have adoption leave as part of their.
Exactly.
And while most people will say 3 months or 4 months, for people who actually naturally conceived the child, if it is by surrogacy or by adoption, they typically give 2 months. I've also seen a company give 3 months. Thank you so much. Let's quickly move to Akin P. Akin P, you have the floor quickly. I'll ask one more time. Akin P, you have the floor. Okay. We'll take that out. Let's quickly move to Christy Oyo. Quickly, please. And
good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this training, and thank you, Ma, for handling this so well. We have been. Thank you so much. So I want to just ask a question. I was saying that for those of us that are actually new in this HR stuff, is it possible to have the slide and also to have like a sample of the HR policy handbook so that we
Please
can
ask that on the
edit?
HR group. Please ask that on the HR group. Ask a question that can be responded to here. Ask that on the HR group. That's the document we're asking for. Do you understand? Ask in the HR group you're in. You'll be attended to. Thank you. Richard Ogbeche, please. Richard Ogbeche.
Okay, thank you very much. And Madam, thank you for the expose. I would like to take us back a little bit to the lady that asked a question about maternity leave. But for me, a question just popped up to my mind. Well, we have a literal meaning of what an intern does in an organization. And that takes me to this question: why do I want to keep an intern for 2 years?
Yes.
If you wanted an employee that would have a different terms of employment, I'm sure many organizations have these third-party employees. Why not change the employees' terms of employment, make him a third-time employee? They have their own code of conduct and terms of employment. But for me, it sounds awkward having an employee as an intern for 2 years, and now she's pregnant. Of course, you will not deny her. Like the last speaker said, that is is a matter of policy. If somebody is pregnant, she's pregnant, whether they legally adopted or surrogacy or whatever. She's pregnant, and she has to have mommy-child time with her child. So I just wanted to chip that in.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
so much.
Mr. I think Richard.
RKP, please. For the final time, RKP.
Good evening, Mr. Olayemi. Good evening,
oh.
Madam Sarah. I am really sorry. I joined with another account,
It's
so I
okay.
didn't even know it was me you were speaking with. Okay, so I just want to quickly say about using a phone during work. I like you said, it is very relative when it comes to organizations. I used to work in an organization where we have swimming instructors. In fact, as a matter of policy, you cannot take your phone to the poolside if you're on duty, because apart from receiving calls, you might be distracted by just checking your phone, and that could put a whole person, a whole life in danger. If you have as a lifeguard, you are distracted for just 1 minute, somebody could just die in that situation. So as a matter of policy, you are not even allowed to take your phone to the poolside. But what we did in that situation is that we let all those people in this kind of department have them give the numbers of the receptionist or the HR to the people in their family, like their spouses, their siblings, people who can contact them if they have emergencies. We have them give that number to them so that your family members, let them know that if you have an emergency, they can't reach you, but they can reach the company. And we can always relate that message to you so that you can attend to your emergencies. So we are not just taking them out that they cannot attend to their personal lives, but we cannot let that distract them because it could cost a life. That's just what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Akin P, for that contribution. God bless.
We'll take only 2 more contributions and we wrap it. Some people need to prepare for administration tomorrow. Chika, please. Oluwadishola.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good
Sorry,
evening,
good
Chika.
evening.
Quickly, please. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Okay, please, I just wanted to make a request. The session has been really, really engaging and interesting, and I didn't really join the session from the beginning, but I would love to have a copy of the presentations. I don't know if it's possible. Just a request.
We've addressed this a few minutes ago, Chika. Oluwadishola, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Ma, and thank you for that wonderful presentation. So I just wanted to pinpoint on just one policy, which is political affiliation. So I feel that organizations should have such policy. What that policy does is to check employees who are vying for political posts, which are outside the context of the job. And then what that policy also does is to make sure that the organization is not on the bad side of everybody in the nation. Take, for example, if an employee is vying for a political post and is, let's say, fighting a opposition party, which tends to be the majority, and tend to mention some statements based on the location of his organization.
Can you raise your voice, Shola? Can you raise your voice?
Can you hear me now very well?
Yes, better now.
Okay, so what that policy does is just to check employees who are vying for political posts. It's very, very important to have this policy because I had an employee who went for a political post last year, and we had to quickly just create something to be in checks of such employee. So that's just my addition to the policy. And also, I've seen in this call where people were mentioning phone calls within the context of their organization.
Phone call with overflow phone calls. Don't add anything to that. Type it in the chat box, please.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you for understanding, Shola.
Michael
Odejobi, sorry, make sure it's a unique contribution, please, because of time. Michael Odejobi.
All right, good evening. My own part is a policy on dating a co-worker. Now, I want Madam to explain when such dating leads to relationship, leads to the marriage now. what should be applied in that kind of situation for the two staffs?
She also explained in our session, Madam said I will speak for you. She explained in this session that context matters. And she said there are scenarios if there will be conflict of interest. In some organization, if the organization is large enough, they may say husband and wife should not be in the same department, maybe accounts or finance for control purposes. So they may be moved to different independent departments. And in some instances, if it's a very small organization or very sensitive organization, then one party may be given maybe time, maybe 6 months or a window to look for a job and move on. In some other organization, because it's big, for example, take Alausa Civil Service. Do you know the number of husbands and wives there? Take teaching. You understand, teaching hospitals. And what they are doing, you can't connive maybe to steal money or to rob or to do something bad. So it's a function of context. Many banks don't encourage or support it. So you know that if you are dating a wife, by the time you are dating with intent to marry, one of you will begin to look for a job in another organization so that you can transition. Thank you so much. Paul Richard, quickly, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liemi, and thank you, Madam Sarah, for your wonderful session. So the part I want to speak to has to do with leave allowance and leave policies, carrying over of leaves, and in fact, the major area that I wanted to ask about is, sometimes we find ourselves working for, what I say, restrictive management who are not very keen on expanding the what I feel welfare privileges of staff. So, and then what is there a limit to the restrictive nature of a leave policy? Like there is one that I came across in consulting where they were insisting that they wanted that it's only upon the anniversary of your employment that you are entitled to your leave allowance. If it does not get to that anniversary and maybe you resign, you may need to forfeit that leave allowance. Is such a leave considered, such a policy rather considered ideal? And is it possible that a policy like that may not stand the test of law? I don't know. I just wanted to get insights from professionals.
Okay, I can also respond to that. Sorry, I have a lot of law. My mom is a lawyer. My younger sister is a lawyer. I've done a lot with lawyers. So that's why I speak, and I've gone to court over 200 times. So forgive me. That doesn't make me a lawyer anyway. So first and foremost, just to respond directly, in the labor law, leave allowance is not mentioned. I'll say that again. In the labor law, there's nothing called leave allowance.
Leave allowance,
which now means that leave allowance is a discretionary organizational policy. So if it is in the policy or in the contracts that the employee signed that this particular allowance can be only activated upon anniversary, and if the anniversary does not crystallizes, then you cannot prorate, so be it. Because if you are going to court, you must have what we call local standing. However, from general practice, that's not the case. What is the case is, even if they say you will get your leave allowance on the anniversary, they agree that you earn it on a pro rata basis on a month by month. So if for any reason, maybe you are leaving after 8 months, 80% of the organizations will prorate what you have earned and pay you that portion. But if a company that has documented it as annual and refuse to prorate because they don't have pro rata as an option, please don't waste your money in courts. You will just end up dashing lawyers' money because you won't stand. But if you are the HR, will I recommend that policy? I wouldn't. Because if I'm checking your contract of employment and I have 3 offers before me and I see that kind of restrictive clause, it's not going to be an attractive parameter for me. So it's not generally acceptable or general practice. Thank you. Richard, I hope
Thank you very much, Doc. That was a very informative take from you, Doc. And I really appreciate that. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Okay. Chika, you have the final comment, and then we'll go back to Coach Sarah Wachuku for a closing remark. Chika, are you with us?
Yes, I'm done. Sorry.
It's the hand I raised earlier.
Okay, thank you. So respond to another question in the chat box via the chat box, please. Coach Sarah, your closing remarks, ma. Thank you so much for an excellent delivery tonight.
Okay. I don't have much to say. I want to thank every participant for spending the, I think, almost 2.5 hours with me on this call today. May God bless you all and enrich your HR career journey or whatever career you are into. So God bless. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Coach Sarah Wachuku. Today we had a full house, well over 100 people attended this live session. And I'm also aware that on a Saturday, intentionally, you have to go to work for this webinar so that there'll be minimal distractions and disruptions to your internet. We do not take this for granted. We appreciate you most sincerely. We also wish you safe journey back to your house. God bless you, what you do, your family. We do not take this for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, we will call it wraps for tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Check out the YouTube session, Oluyemi Adeosun. It will be uploaded tonight. We'll continue our conversation on our various groups. Au revoir. Bye for now.
Au revoir. It's not au revoir, it's au revoir.